Ramattra is ridiculously broken, and we need to talk about this. There's a sheet in front of you right now that's going to be covering Ramattra's abilities and ultimate. We're going to quickly speed run this, and then we're going to talk about what I think about the hero and why I think he might fit into the meta, regardless of the changes the other tanks are going to get. This guy can kind of do everything, and he's really powerful. So let's get started. So in his Omnic Sage form, he comes with Void Accelerator. In this form of his Sage form, the Void Accelerator is his staff, and what it does is it allows him to fire a stream of projectiles in a fixed pattern. I don't know if this is like Symmetra's old beam where it can lock onto a target and then melt them, or if it just goes in a straight line. It does have a headshot multiplier on it, so that is very interesting as well. And he also has the ability within his like Sage or Omnic form, he's able to create a barrier at a targeted location, so you can select where you want to summon a barrier, and then the barrier comes up. And the barrier is pretty beefy, but it only stays up for like 2 or 3 seconds if I remember the timing. They didn't necessarily tell us the timing, but I think it's about 2 or 3 seconds maximum. So already off to a really good start. He has really good poke potential, and he has a good way to deny certain sightlines and to close distances when he's in his Omnic Sage form. I don't know why they called it Omnic form. Sage form just sounds miles cooler. All right, so when he enters Nemesis form, he transforms into that giant robot form, and he also gains bonus armor. In this, the primary set of things that he can do, the left click and the right click, actually now change. The pummel sends forth a wave of energy with every swing, and then his right click most likely is going to be his basically his power block, which reduces damage taken, and he moves slower as well. It doesn't necessarily convert that damage back into something that he can throw out. It's just like a way for him to tank damage. Now, the thing that makes pummel really strong is the fact that it can actually go through shields. You can see with the footage in front of you right now, it's going through the Reinhardt shield, and that's actually really strong as well. And it seems that it can hit multiple targets at once. That's kind of crazy. Like, it doesn't seem like it has the highest damage numbers, but when you kind of pair this with like maybe some other abilities in the game, or if you know how to time your engages properly with Ramatra and with the heroes that he will have synergy with, it kind of already seems like Ramatra is very strong. And then this is where things get worse. So his ability, which is most likely going to be the E button, the Ravenous Vortex, it fires a nano ball that explodes and hits the ground, and it spreads a damaging field. So it can already do damage, and then it turns into a big circle that goes upwards. Like it's like this like field that gets created, right? And anybody that's caught with it and gets slowed and pulled downward. Now, I think this is the most slow we've seen any of the characters. Just look at the way Tracer is walking over there, or how Far is kind of like stuck or something. Like, this is really strong. It's actually like a more beefed up version of Sojourn's slow field thing that she creates with her E. So Ravenous Vortex is going to be really strong. Now, to be fair, like, tanks did need something to kind of deal with flyers as well, like Echo, Mercy, or Pharah. So in that sense, this is nice. But there's also this thing where this thing could be really strong in the right circumstances, especially if you're like engaging in other brawl comps. Like if Ramatra is fighting like a Reinhardt-based brawl comp, you could just slow him down, and just what are they going to do about it? I don't know. And this also contradicts with Blizzard's old design philosophy. When they were balancing Doomfist in the betas, they removed Doomfist as slow because they were like, yeah, this is kind of broken. And now they threw it over into Ramatra's kit, where it doesn't just slow, it also does a decent amount of damage. It can pull down characters that fly. It's just so ridiculous to me how they contradict themselves with so many balance decisions, where it's like, oh yeah, Doomfist can have that, but Ramatra can. And honestly, technically speaking, Ramatra is just like a more buffed up Doomfist, which is ridiculous. And if you thought like he wasn't strong enough now, wait until you figure out what his ultimate does. His ultimate is basically the opposite of Transcendence, where instead of healing up targets, it starts dealing damage to everybody around him. Obviously, enemies are not your allies, but this is the real kicker. It reduces enemy damage dealt by 50%. That is ridiculous. Like, Annihilation might be the first ultimate in the game, where, in my personal opinion, if you activate Annihilation, you deserve to win that teamfight. You should win that teamfight. There is no circumstance where you lose that teamfight, because this is crazy. And if I remember, the developer even said that if you start getting eliminations while you're in Annihilation, it starts to extend the period of Annihilation. So combo all of that with literally everything he can do, Ramatra is very, very broken, it seems. So now let's talk about where I think Ramatra is going to fit in. The current support meta is basically Kiriko and Lucio, because the game has seen a big mobility creep. And somebody might make an argument and say, well, Abby, Ramatra is not really the most mobile character in the game. Exactly, but that's where Lucio comes in to help him move around the map. And, Kiriko can just take off any negative effects that get on him. So when you have those two characters just holding his hand, Ramatra is going to be a very strong character. Now, I don't necessarily know what the meta DPS is going to be. We do know Sojourn and Tracer are in line for some changes. They've also told us that Symmetra might get some changes. Like, in terms of DPS, I won't necessarily say who Ramatra is going to be played with, but I'm fairly certain that Ramatra with Kiriko Lucio as the current meta support line, they are going to be really strong. Like they're going to be really strong. And Ramatra can also work really well with a lot of the other supports as well. Again, his potential is limitless because his kit is basically limitless. Like, he's good at poke damage, he's good at brawling. You know, he doesn't necessarily dive, but he has an ability that can just shut down dive by slowing down targets that get caught within that field. And he can fight back and start pummeling people. I think it would be even more ridiculous if somehow Pummel can slightly boop people around. Like, that would be kind of crazy, right? But it doesn't do that, as far as I know right now. Like, maybe at point blank range, if you get pummeled by him, you get booped back. If that's the case, Ramatra might be the most broken tank the game has ever seen. If anything, there's like words going around right now that he's basically a better Sigma, a better Doomfist. I think he's a better version of both of them put together, which is ridiculous because Sigma, as we know, is a very powerful tank. And he's just kind of slept upon right now. And Doomfist is like, you know, he could potentially be good going into Season 2, but if he has to compete with Ramatra, Ramatra just has a really good kit. Doomfist's weakness is that he doesn't necessarily have poke damage. Ramatra can size him up by poking him down, and when Doomfist comes in, he can just bully him with his own punches instead of Doomfist's, you know, little gauntlet doing 0 damage. You know, you hit with a pillow with that thing. It feels like a pillow. It doesn't feel like an actual gauntlet of doom. Okay, all that aside, I want your guys' feedback. What do you think of Ramatra? I think Ramatra is ridiculously broken. I understand that they do want to do stuff like this with their new characters, but I think there's a way of going about it as well. Like, for example, not every character needs to have a ridiculously, like, bloated kit, because we might just end up back in the Brigida situation like we did in Overwatch 1, and it might end up killing the game. For example, if you look at some of the earlier characters in Overwatch, right? You had Tracer, Genji, Winston, like, these characters, like, even D.Va, like, they're relatively simple and straightforward. Like, their kit isn't over bloated or, like, you know, like, it doesn't do all these, like, passives and this and that. It doesn't reduce damage, blah, blah, blah. They all have, like, some straightforward gameplay style, but, like, the skill, like, it's so well done that the skill ceiling and skill floor are so appropriate for these characters. You also have Reinhardt, who seems easy to play, but, like, Reinhardt is, like, one of the most ultimate characters that relies on great amount of game sense to make him work properly. So Ramatra for me just feels, I don't know, like, I just think he's way too powerful. I also think, like, the developers should seriously come to understand that not every new hero they put in should be bloated like crazy. It makes the game really unfun to play. I think I speak for everyone when I say that Sojourn is a great example of this in the Overwatch 2 setting right now. Kiriko is really, really powerful, but I wouldn't say that she's at the level of what potentially Sojourn and Ramatra might be at. So that's just my opinion. You're more than welcome to disagree with it down below. But I'm just baffled that Blizzard continues to do this with every new hero they create, and they proceed to gutter old heroes into the trash bin. Like, they just ruined Genji. You know, like, Symmetra's in a weird spot, Doomfist is in an awkward spot, Mercy's struggling to find her place in the game, and out of nowhere, they're just like, oh yeah, well, instead of reworking those characters or making them a little bit of a priority, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, like, here's this other tank who's just ridiculous. But those tanks that are struggling in the game right now, even I would even make an argument that even Wrecking Ball is kind of in an awkward spot right now. We're just gonna, like, we'll come back to them eventually, but enjoy our new thing, buy our battle pass, buy our skins. You know, it just, I don't know, like, all of this just feels really weird. And in hindsight, maybe Ramatra is not that bad, but a part of me does kind of feel like Ramatra will immediately be in the meta. Like, if Kiriko and Lucio are still good going into Season 2, Kiriko and Lucio just covered the weaknesses of the tank role really well. One guy just speeds them up, the other girl just completely negates any negative effects in terms of CC or some sort of a status effect that could be put on them. And the tank themselves are so beefy that you don't even need necessarily high heals, since those two low healing supports can just keep that person alive. Regardless, Kiriko does do a great amount of healing as well. So I don't know, guys, you let me know what you think of Ramatra down below. Is Ramatra broken? Do you think we should wait and see? What is your opinion of Ramatra? That will be it for today's video. Thank you so much, and to support this channel for free, just hit the subscribe and like button. It means a lot to me. I will see you in the next one.